Welcome to Middle School Central Teaching. We are looking in the book of Philippians, and we're now on chapter 2 with the passage about unity. I'm really glad to be teaching on this because I think we've been in a unity crisis for a long time. I think this is what hanging out looked like even last year. But now, how much more are we isolated now that we have to be physically distant from each other? We're not only glued to our devices, we can't even see each other. This is what 2020 looks like. Well, almost. Nobody really has that hairdo anymore, so there. This is what 2020 looks like. I think we have a problem with unity, and thank God that His Word addresses this and we can do something about it. So let's read the passage. It says, "Is there any encouragement from belonging to Christ? Any comfort from His love? Any fellowship together in the Spirit? Are your hearts tender and compassionate?" What the author is doing here, Paul is saying, he's asking these first three questions, and the idea is the answer is duh. Of course there's encouragement from belonging to Christ. He's talking to people who have put their trust in Jesus, and they know that Jesus has rescued them and loved them. So of course they have comfort from His love, and they have fellowship together in the Spirit, that God lives in our hearts through His Spirit. But then he asks them, are your hearts tender and compassionate? Well, if God has loved us that much, like it's described in those first three questions, then shouldn't we be tender and compassionate? Shouldn't we love other people? So if so, he's saying, then make me truly happy by agreeing wholeheartedly with each other, loving one another, and working together with one mind and purpose. What's that look like? He says, don't be selfish. Don't try to impress others. Be humble, thinking of others as better than yourselves. And don't look out only for your own interests, but take an interest in others too. You must have the same attitude that Christ Jesus had. This passage, like I said, is all about unity. Check out all these things it says that have to do with people coming together, not fighting, not being separate, but coming together as one. He mentions agreeing wholeheartedly, loving one another, working together with one mind and purpose, not being selfish, thinking of others as better than yourself, and taking an interest in other people. These all have to do with unity, so we are going to see 4 features from these 5 verses about Christian unity. Here's the first, and it has to do with the way that this passage begins and ends. Why is he talking about Jesus when he's telling us to be united? He asks, aren't you encouraged that you belong to Christ? And he mentions the attitude that Jesus had. Why bring that up in this section? It's because Christian unity starts with Jesus. The Bible teaches that Jesus came to rescue us, that we all had this huge problem, that we have turned away from God, we have done wrong, we've done things that we know God does not want us to do. And so we are under His judgment. So we cannot know God and we cannot have eternal life. But then God sent Jesus to rescue us. And Jesus had to die in our place so that we can be forgiven. And when He died, He was punished for the things that we've done wrong. And so you're like, that's cool. I got you there. But what does that have to do with unity? Jesus gets us forgiveness and gets us into heaven. But how does that make me connected with other Christians? Check out what he says here. The same author, Paul, says this to 2 groups of people who had been fighting for centuries. This is from Ephesians chapter 2. He tells them, together as one body, Christ reconciled both groups. To reconcile means to bring back together. He reconciled both groups to God by means of His death on the cross. And our hostility, that is our fighting toward each other, was put to death. You may be like, okay, I get how we are brought to God by Jesus' death, but how are we brought to each other? Well, think about it like spokes on a wheel. The spokes are connected to the hub, but that also means that through the hub, they are connected with each other. We are connected with Jesus. If you have put your trust in him, you are saved, you have this connection with Jesus, but that also means that you are connected with the other people who are also connected with Jesus. So you have that connection. That's one of the ways that Christian unity starts with Jesus. But it's also that Christian unity is motivated by God's love for us. Since you have encouragement from knowing Christ, since you have comfort from his love, then you can do what you got to do to love and serve other people. Then we can what? Make Paul truly happy by agreeing wholeheartedly with each other. That's the big statement about unity that brings this passage together. That shows us what this is talking about. And then he says, in order to do that, we should love one another and we should work together. And this is our second point about Christian unity, is that we need both of these kinds of unity. Loving each other, like Christians loving other Christians, and working together. So here's you and your Christian friend, and what you need to do is love each other. Talk to each other, share your lives with each other, listen to each other, do good for each other, but it can't stop there. Together, you need to love and serve other people. You need to get God's message out to other people, and you need to work together to do it. When you do that, you'll feel united. Now, I think some Christian groups might be full of people who are out trying to change the world, and they're trying to get the message of Jesus out to others, but they don't share their lives with each other. That's not enough. And there's probably a lot more Christian groups where they share their lives with each other, they love each other, but then they don't work together to try to love and serve people outside the church. We need both. And when you're working together for a big goal, it really brings people together. You might have experienced something like this if you've ever been on a sports team with people. It's like you're working hard, it's hard, you're sweating, and it's difficult, and then you win, and you look at the people next to you. It was the guy you didn't like 5 minutes ago, and you're like, yeah, awesome, and you're hugging each other. You're like, this is so sweet. Or for my non-sports people, maybe you experience something similar gaming with other people. You probably do. I wouldn't know. But you're accomplishing something together, and how much more cool would that be if it was something in the real world that led to real change? You do it together, and it brings you together. Next, he says, don't be selfish. Don't try to impress others. Be humble, thinking of others as better than yourselves. This is our third point about Christian unity, is that we must have the right attitude. That is, to be humble, to have humility. Those are the same word. Be humble, have humility. They both mean you don't think you're too good for other people. You might be thinking, okay, so don't brag. Yes, don't brag. You shouldn't brag, but it goes beyond just not bragging. Because if you think you're way better than everybody else, but you just keep your mouth shut about it, you're still not really being humble. Think how crazy what this is telling us to do is. It says we need to think of others as better than yourselves. So this other person, God is like, hey, go talk to that person. Be friends with that person. And you're like, I got to think of that person as better than myself? But they're not better than me. I don't really like that person. They're annoying, and I'm totally not annoying. Okay, not as annoying as they are, anyway. Regardless, at the very least, we are equal. They are not better than me. So how are we supposed to think of others as better than ourselves? It gives us a clue there in verse 5, that being humble is the same attitude that Jesus had. If anyone could have been like, I'm better than you, so I don't want to be friends with you, I don't want to associate with you, you get on my nerves, it could have been Jesus. The Bible teaches, and we'll see very clearly in the next teaching, that Jesus is God. And he became a human being so that he could die for us, so he could suffer in order to make us not have to suffer. So he could suffer so that we could be forgiven. If the God of the universe could do that for us, then you could be friends with the person that you find annoying. You could spare a single kind word for them. We should not think of ourselves as better than others. Definitely not too good to serve other people. So you might be thinking, all right, cool, I'm there. I don't think of myself as better than others, so what should I actually do? Well, that's where verse 4 goes. He says, don't look out only for your own interests, but take an interest in others too. In other words, we must take action. It's not enough sitting around and having a good attitude toward other people. We have to take action in order to do good for them, where we're not just looking out for what we want. We're thinking about what do other people want? What could I do for them? And maybe you're wondering that exact thing. What could you do? And now, this next part, I have to warn you, this might offend some people because of how corny it is. But it's intentional because I'm hoping that, as dorky as it is, that you will remember it. And if you remember it, then you could put it into practice. So before I say this is going to hurt me more than it hurts you. If you're not sure what to do to serve a friend, take your friend to the Alps. You need to ask, listen, and pray. What can you do for them? Ask them something about their life. You might be like, how is that helpful for them? Trust me, people love it when you actually are interested in what's going on with them. And maybe in discussion groups after this, you could come up with ideas for the type of things you could ask each other that wouldn't sound weird, where it's not going to sound like your grandma on Christmas quizzing you about the last year of your life, okay? There's ways to do this where it's not weird, and I bet you could figure it out. After you ask them things, you should listen to what they say. This is not easy because we're always more interested in the things that we have to say than in the things that other people have to say to us. So you got to take the time to actually listen. And how can you show them that you're listening, that you care about what they say? That's another one that I bet you could figure out, and I'd like you to discuss in discussion groups. And then last, once they've talked to you about their lives, commit to praying about the things in their life that they told you. You might need to make yourself a reminder, write yourself a note to remember to pray for your friend. Now, if you're like, that's cool, I've never done anything like that before. Now, I think a lot of people are in that same boat, that they've never really tried this. So here's something you could try. If that seems too hard for you to take your friend to the Alps, then just invite them to do something with you. If you're kicking a ball, say, hey, do you want to join? If you were sitting with a couple other people and there's someone not with you, just say to them, hey, do you want to sit over here? Or if you're just looking at something funny on a screen, be like, hey, look, and show somebody. Do something to invite them into what you're doing. And if you're like, I've never done that either. Okay, if that seems too hard for you, here's your challenge, all right? Baby steps. Say anything to welcome or greet someone the next time you get together with your home group, your cell group or home church. Find someone and say hello. If that is uncomfortable for you, that may be a step forward, but you could do it. Say, hey, what's up? You could do it. I believe in you. So let's pull this all together. Christian unity, it starts with Jesus. We can do this because he's loved us and because he's already connected us. Also, we need both kinds of unity. We need to love each other, and together we need to get God's love out to the world. We need to work together to make a difference. Also, we need the right attitude if we're going to do this. That is humility, where we don't think of ourselves as better than other people. Are there people that you're like, I wouldn't be friends with them? That's something you need to take to God, and you need to get rid of it if you want to get anywhere in this area of being united. And last, we need to take action. Take something that we talked about and give it a try. Because this is what I'm worried about. Please don't be this guy. You know what this person is thinking? They're like, oh, another Bible study. I'm going to listen to this Bible study. Okay, that's not what it's about. Yeah, listen to the Bible study. The point is we are supposed to act on the things that God says. So don't let that be you. I'm hoping maybe me just saying this is going to wake you up and be like, I was doing that. I was just listening to a Bible study and I wasn't even thinking about maybe I should actually try this. So here's some questions I want to leave you with that you can act on. First, have you put your trust in Jesus to rescue you? If you're like, I've never been able to do any of these things we talked about, maybe this is why. That you need to get connected with Jesus, and then you'll find the motivation to be united with others. And if you have, what could you try the very next time you see friends from your home group? What is one thing that you could do? So we've got discussion questions in the description down below. Thanks so much for tuning in.